Yeah, before the bodies were found, we were experienced in the residents out here. I had my car broken into a few times. What they call crimes of opportunity. In other words, they're just walking by if they can get something for free, you know, to buy another bottle of booze or a bottle of wine or another fix, you know, another shot in the arm. That's what they would do. But most of the people that were living out here or staying in the motels were in bad shape. They were renting the rooms by the night, by the hour, by the week, some by the month. And it's a shame because there were children out here in some of the facilities, but they were not good people. There was you know, a lot of thieves out here, a lot of drugs, a lot of drinking. And it really took a lot from our police department. We almost had to keep a patrol car out here almost constantly in the area of West Atlantic City and Pleasantville. You know, from some of the...
Welcome to West Atlantic City. Today we're here to explore the notorious Blackhorse Pike, also known as US 40. Known for its mile-long strip of seedy budget motels that offer hourly rates for the women of the night and criminals of all sorts to conduct their business, but also with long-term living plans for people with housing vouchers on welfare. It's technically a part of Egg Harbor Township, lying just west of the AC city limits and just east of the Pleasantville city limits. Both cities being known for high crime rates, this strip is the perfect location for illegal activities of all sorts. It was referred to as the Corridor of Death by the New York Times for a famous serial killing, and ranked as the most dangerous street in New Jersey for the unusual amount of pedestrians being struck and killed by reckless drivers.
News overnight, police in South Jersey are looking for possibly two drivers in a deadly hit and run. The victim has not been identified, but that person was struck on the Blackhorse Pike in Egg Harbor Township. Police say that person was plowed into by at least one vehicle while crossing the road around 1:30 this morning. Investigators are working to get a description of the vehicles or vehicle involved in this.
Just in, a pedestrian is in critical condition after being hit by a car in Atlantic City. It happened just before midnight on US 40 near the Atlantic City Expressway. Police tell Action News the pedestrian was on the highway when it happened, and they are now trying to figure out what that person was doing there.
A pedestrian was struck and killed tonight along the Blackhorse Pike. It happened just before 9 in the eastbound lanes in Egg Harbor Township, close to the Atlantic City line. Authorities have not said whether charges will be filed against the driver of a minivan and have not yet released the identity of the victim.
Surrounded by amazing views of the bay and the marshes, with close proximity to the iconic boardwalk and beaches of Atlantic City, it would appear to be the perfect destination for people to spend a weekend without paying top dollar for a room in the city. So what happened to this strip of Blackhorse Pike? Well, it was once used as a main highway to get from Philadelphia to Atlantic City until the AC Expressway was built, offering a much faster, more convenient route, forcing local businesses that relied on tourism to shut down, leaving behind vacant lots and boarded up buildings. This strip has now been left behind and forgotten with little hope for the future. If you look to the left, you'll see a few motels still open for business, but you'll see more decaying lots where the motels once occupied. Even the telephone poles are on their last leg. Literally, some of them are actually being held up by stilts. The motels that are still here are crumbling and looking ready to be demolished at any time. Here's a clip of what it once looked like before they knocked down a majority of this strip, starting at the Golden Key Motel, which was the location for the serial killings of the Eastbound Strangler, and we'll talk about that story in a little bit.
Travelodge is now, I don't know what happened with the owner, but it's just abandoned and it's decaying a lot.
Police in South Jersey are trying to determine if a holdup at an Egg Harbor Township hotel is connected to other robberies in the area. It happened at the Travelodge Atlantic City Bayside around midnight. That's along the 7000 block of East Blackhorse Pike. Police say the suspect was armed with a semi-automatic handgun, but aren't sure what was taken. They're now looking at surveillance video to piece together a description of the gunman. Investigators are also working to see if this robbery is connected to a string of other holdups.
The Travelodge is now, I don't know what happened with the owner, but it's just abandoned and it's decaying a lot. It's kind of interesting to see it the way that it is. Every time we pass it, whenever we're going to Atlantic City, the memories always come back in my head about that place when it was up and running. That hotel specifically, along with a lot of the places in West AC along the Blackhorse Pike, are places where in the summer, normal families, like middle class normal families, will stay there in the summertime because they're cheaper than the ones that are directly in the city. But in the wintertime, I don't want anybody to take this the wrong way, but there's, people that live in these hotels and motels.
So the young lady we were just hearing from actually worked here at the Travelodge some time back. And if you'd like to hear more of her story, go over to the Tucker Upper YouTube channel. The video is called Real Life Stories from Atlantic City, parentheses, I'm Not Invisible. Now, she was being very respectful about telling that story. And, I'm sure a lot of people appreciate that, but I'm just going to be real about it. What she was saying, basically, is that there are a lot of people that live here year-round, and a lot of them are not the most desirable people to spend a weekend next to or to live next door to. So a lot of them are heavy drug users, drug dealers, prostitutes. You also get a lot of people that come out here on the run. They might have done a shooting a couple states over, and then they'll come out here to stay at the hotels and motels because they know a lot of other people are involved in crime and are way less likely to call the police on them. So here's an example of somebody that did a shooting a couple states over and came out here to go on the run.
2 men were arrested Saturday for shooting at a man who is wanted in connection with a slaying in South Carolina. Police apprehended 2 suspects, including one after an hour-long chase into the marsh, following the shooting at about 12:30 p.m. at the Atlantic City Lakes Bay Resort. Deontay Nathan Williams, 26, of Florence, South Carolina, was shot in the arm and was taken to Atlantic Care Regional Medical Center, City Campus in Atlantic City, said a release from Township Police. Williams was uncooperative at the scene and was later identified as a fugitive from a homicide investigation in South Carolina, police said. He was later taken to the Atlantic County Jail. Police arrested Philadelphia resident Christopher J. Robinson, 19, in a vehicle outside the hotel, the release said. Another shooting suspect, Darius Covington, 21, of Philadelphia, fled on foot across the Atlantic City Expressway near mile marker 3, just east of the Atlantic City Visitor Center.
Atlantic City officer Jack Slota saw the suspect crossing the highway. State police and officers from Atlantic City, Pleasantville, Absecon, and Egg Harbor Township swarmed the expressway for an intensive search for the suspect in the marsh. Atlantic City Police K-9 officer William Jackson and his dog, Storm, searched the marshes. Several other officers formed a perimeter near Route 40. The search continued for an hour as police blocked one lane of expressway traffic. One officer armed with an assault rifle stood on the roof of a police sport utility vehicle scanning the marshes with a pair of binoculars as puzzled tourists gawked on the highway. Suddenly, the officer leapt to the ground. 3 officers joined him and trained their handguns on the marsh. They began stalking the edge of the highway, shouting directions to the hiding suspect. Moments later, they disappeared amid the Phragmites reeds. When they reappeared, they led a handcuffed Covington to a waiting police cruise. Covington lost his pants during the chase, police said. He was taken by ambulance to the hospital for treatment of hypothermia, according to a release from the Atlantic City Police Department.
Police credited Slota and Atlantic City Police Sergeant Rudy Lucina finding the suspect, who was hiding in the water. Covington was charged with conspiracy, aggravated assault, obstruction, and resisting arrest, police said. Robinson was charged with aggravated assault, possession of a weapon, and possession of hollow point bullets, police said. Both suspects were transported to Atlantic County Jail with a $50,000 cash bail, police said. Police recovered a .38 caliber handgun with the hollow point bullets at the scene. Staff writers Michael Miller and Joel Landau contributed to this report.
Of what was going on over behind the motels and in the motels. We had been having a lot of trouble with the motels and the clientele they had staying out here. To this, with my job, I have seen, a lot of crimes and homicides and deaths. They said, just a matter of time before something like this happened, because we knew something like this, not this horrible, would happen. I was always worried about fires in the motels because there was people in there cooking on hot plates and little friolators, and the fire chief and myself constantly feared of a major fire in the motels, and then it would go into a big fire in no time. And with the people, drinking and taking drugs, you'd be carrying out body bags from the motels.
Smoke and flames weren't the only hazards firefighters encountered at this burning motel.
Advise all your units that we do have needles in the rooms. Be careful.
They're trying to do their job, and they got to watch out for needles and stuff. Man, that's just terrible.
No one was hurt in the early morning fire in a building under renovation at the Economy Inn. It's on the Blackhorse Pike in the West Atlantic City section of Egg Harbor Township, right across the street from a well-kept townhouse community.
Unfortunately, we are backed up to the Blackhorse Pike, so it's an eyesore.
The fire bringing new attention to the low-rent motels and abandoned buildings on this heavily traveled road leading in and out of AC.
Get rid of them.
The area was known for years as a magnet for illegal activity. Within the past decade, Egg Harbor Township used grant money to purchase and demolish 10 old motels that dotted the landscape, many prone to frequent flooding. The lots now empty.
Are you satisfied, though?
No, we could do more over there to clean up that highway.
The mayor says he'll ask state lawmakers if they can help the township secure more money to further improve this gateway to Atlantic City, seen by millions of visitors.
They're coming to a destination. This is the access in. It could look much better.
The township's fire official tells me this appears to have been an accident. He says it looks like someone left a work light on and it overheated.
Hopefully it goes.
A relative said the motel's owner wasn't around and couldn't talk with us today. The aftermath of a fire on a busy strip that has yet to shed all of its blight. Ted Greenberg, NBC 10 News.
Hours after teaming with his wife to burglarize an Atlantic County home, an Egg Harbor Township man robbed a gas station at gunpoint, police said. Peter and Elaine Thomas of Egg Harbor Township. Elaine and Peter Thomas were arrested Wednesday after being spotted by an off-duty cop who recognized the couple from surveillance footage the homeowner shared with Egg Harbor Township police after the burglary, according to a news release. The arrest came 3 days after homeowners discovered their summer residence on the 200 block of Oxford Place in the West Atlantic City section of town had been broken into, police said. Peter Thomas held up the Conoco gas station on the Blackhorse Pike just after midnight on March 16, according to police. Thomas forced his way into the attendant's booth, showed a gun and demanded cash, police said. He allegedly fled on foot with an undetermined amount of cash and cigarettes. The home burglary took place during the day on March 15, according to the surveillance footage. Peter Thomas, 47, was charged with armed robbery and burglary, while Elaine Thomas, 46, faces a burglary charge.
What is that doing here? A bunch of clams. This joint is weird as shit back here, y'all. I ain't gonna hold you. This joint is weird, bro. There's mad clams. There's some raspberry fucking jelly. This joint is crazy. Now what does it say? You spend your whole life becoming Joe Rogan? What is this word right here? That's what I'm trying to figure out. Alright. I don't know what the f that shit says. 420 spot though, that's all that matters. This joint still has electricity.
Egg Harbor Township, New Jersey. A convicted killer and a police dog were wounded by gunfire Thursday afternoon during a manhunt in the township's West Atlantic City section. Donald Capriati, 39, was wanted on warrants out of Atlantic City when his car was pulled over near the Travelodge on the Blackhorse Pike. He was believed to be armed, said Peter Asseltine of the Attorney General's office. He bailed out of the car and fled. As officers from Atlantic City, Egg Harbor Township, and state police searched for him, shots were fired. A dog from the police K-9 unit was struck, and Capriati was shot multiple times by police. Ashley Dearborn, 24, of Margate, said she was walking along the road about 2:30 p.m. when police pulled over a silver Jaguar. She said the driver fled into the marshes near a residential development. Police with a K-9 pursued him. As soon as the dog got to him, he shot, and the police shot back, Dearborn said. Both Capriati and the dog were taken into surgery. Capriati was in critical condition, Asseltine said. The dog, Shooter, was transferred to the Red Bank Veterinary Hospital in Tinton Falls. His handler is Lieutenant Mike Bordenero. The police-involved shooting was being investigated by the Attorney General's office, the Division of Criminal Justice and State Police Major Crimes Unit. Capriati, who was also known as Gardner, was paroled in May 2012 after serving almost 19 years of a 30-year sentence in the killing of his friend Devin Whitehead when both were 19. Capriati pleaded guilty to aggravated manslaughter in the killing of the Pleasantville man, saying he made a human mistake when he shot his good friend in the head about 10:30 a.m. June 12, 1993, and left him in bushes in the Thompson Avenue gravel pit. Capriati allegedly told investigators he was angry after two people told him Whitehead had said bad things about him. Capriati was arrested twice this year, both times with his wife, Chinyere Anyaba Gardner, 32. On Thursday, she was taken into police custody, but no further details were available. In January, the two were arrested at Capriati's Robin Road home in the township's Cardiff section. Police said they found about $6,000 worth of crack cocaine, a half ounce of marijuana, a 12-gauge sawed-off shotgun with 13 rounds of ammunition, a Tech-9 semi-automatic assault rifle also with 13 rounds of ammunition, and a high-capacity magazine. Capriati was charged with first-degree drug possession, which carries a possible sentence of 10 to 20 years in prison, along with drug and weapons offenses. His bail was set at $250,000 cash, which he was able to pay, court records show. He had not missed any previous court dates. Capriati and Anyaba Gardner were again arrested in July, after allegedly attacking a man inside a township motel the month before. The man, whose name was not released, was pistol-whipped, hit with a baseball bat, and stabbed with a machete inside the Courtesy Inn in Farmington, according to the report. The U.S. Marshals Task Force arrested them July 11th at a motel on North Albany Avenue. Capriati again made bail. His wife also has served time for manslaughter. She served a 7-year sentence for the 2002 death of her 5-month-old son.
Here lies the remains of the Golden Key Motel. It was known as one of the most troubled motels along the Pike, and it would go on to be the site of one of New Jersey's most brutal serial killings ever. November 20th, 2006. A calm winter afternoon, two women took a walk down a pebble path through the marshes of the Blackhorse Pike in West Atlantic City. On one side of the path lied a long stream that functioned as a drainage ditch, and on the other, a thick brush of tall reeds and grass, separating the troubled strip of drug-infested motels and flop houses that plagued this 1-mile section of the Blackhorse Pike. As the women walked behind the Golden Key Motel, they saw a half-submerged body of a woman lying in the drainage ditch. They called the police immediately and patiently waited nearby. When the police arrived, they approached the lifeless body and began investigating further down the path. It wasn't far into their search when they uncovered the bodies of 3 more women laying in the drainage ditch, spaced out no more than 50 yards from each other. All 4 of the women were fully clothed aside from their bare feet with no socks or shoes. They also were voided of purses, wallets, or ID cards. They all appeared to have been strangled and left with their heads pointing east towards Atlantic City. As the presentation appeared to be intentional, the title of the Eastbound Strangler was born. Based on the levels of decomposition for each body, it was assumed that the women had all been killed at separate times over the course of 2 months. Each of them appeared to have been killed a week or two apart from one another. 35-year-old Kim Raffo appeared to be the most recent of the victims brought to the scene. Prior to her passing, she had married and had 2 children while also caring for her sister's 2 children. At some point, she had become involved in an affair with another man who was heavily encumbered by drug abuse. When her husband left with her children, her and her lover fell deeper into their addiction and eventually fell in the theft and sex trafficking world of Atlantic City. In an attempt to mend her estranged marriage and clean herself up, she moved into a motel in New York where her ex-husband tried to help her get her life back on track. She told him that she had some things to clean up in Atlantic City and needed to return for a brief period of time to do so. This would be the last time anyone heard from her. The second most recent victim was 23-year-old Tracy Ann Roberts of Bear, Delaware. Tracy is remembered as an outgoing, happy person who loved hanging out with friends and socializing. At around 14, her life began to spiral downwards when she began experimenting with drugs. At 16, she dropped out of school and found a job as a telemarketer for a mortgage broker. She began dating one of her co-workers and gave birth to their daughter at 18 years old. Tracy had made attempts to get her life back on track, enrolling in a trade school. She found a job at a doctor's office and was able to purchase her first home. Her daughter's father, and her daughter all lived together at this home, and Tracy's mother said it was the happiest time of her life. The doctor she worked for ended up moving locations after she had been working there for a year, leaving her jobless, unable to pay her mortgage. At this point, her life began to fall apart once again. The relationship with her daughter's father ended, and her house went into foreclosure. To find relief, Tracy turned to cocaine, which became more frequent as time went on. She spent this period moving between Delaware, Philadelphia, and Atlantic City. In 2006, she would make her last trip to Atlantic City. She worked as an exotic dancer in AC until her drug use had become too apparent. Her appearance becoming too sickly and frail to get work at the strip clubs, she turned to the streets as a sex worker. She went from outgoing and happy to isolated and depressed. In the street, she was exposed to many dangerous people. One of them, a man trying to become her pimp, punched her in the neck so hard it landed her in the hospital. From the hospital, she called her mother in Delaware and asked her to come get her and bring her home. This would be the last time her mother would hear her voice. After making the 90-minute drive to Atlantic City, her mother discovered that she had arrived just a few minutes too late. Tracy had already checked out and left with 2 unknown men, never to be seen again. The second woman killed was 42-year-old Barbara Bridor. Barbara grew up in a loving home in the suburbs of Philadelphia. She spent her summers with family and friends on the Jersey Shore, not far from where her lifeless body would one day be found. She was known by her family as the smartest one out of all her siblings. They would often tell her to go on the game show Jeopardy, as she was always able to shout out the correct answers, because she had such a great deal of knowledge about such a wide range of topics. Barbara's life would change for the worst when her father died abruptly. She went into a deep depression, which she attempted to self-medicate with drugs. She was able to turn things around for a while, going to the community college, then transferring to Penn State. Unfortunately, she found herself still struggling with depression and ended up dropping out. In an attempt to turn things around, she moved to the Jersey Shore and found a job as a waitress. This seemed to be a great decision, as she was able to find some peace of mind by the water. Her mother had started a business selling Native American art on the AC boardwalk, so she went to work there and eventually went on to manage the business. When her mother retired and sold the business, Barbara went back to waitressing. In 1997, Barbara had a daughter who she loved with all her heart. However, as her depression snuck back in, her and her husband had become addicted to pain pills. At this point, she sent her daughter to live with her sister in Florida. As their addiction got worse and doctors cut them off from receiving prescriptions, they turned to the street and replaced their addiction with heroin. Her husband ended up going to prison for drug possession, leaving her alone with an addiction, fending for her own. Eventually, she turned to sex work in Atlantic City to support her habit. Slowly, she would lose contact with her family and would become lost in the lifestyle of the streets. Barbara was last seen leaving a house in Ventnor City, never to be seen again until her body was found behind the Golden Key Motel. The first body police found was so badly decomposed that they had to rely on tattoos matching the description they received on a missing persons report. Molly Dilts was from a small mining town, Black Lick, Pennsylvania, and grew up with a lack of money and resources. She was only 20 years old at the time of her death. She had taken on severe trauma in her teenage years from the death of her mother and brother. This led her into a phase of rebellion and acting out, which landed her in several run-ins with the law. In this time, she found alcohol and drugs as a way to cope. She struggled through high school and dropped out in her junior year. Through her legal issues, the court sentenced her to rehab, but she was not ready to stay sober when she left. In June of 2005, Molly gave birth to her son Jeremiah. Unable to care for him, she signed over custody to her father. She spent the year following her son's birth traveling from her hometown in western PA and Philadelphia. She first arrived in Atlantic City in the summer of 2006. She came home to visit her family and told them that things were getting much better for her. She claimed to have gotten clean, but still smoked marijuana. There was some speculation to how true that was, however. Her family last heard from her in October when she called collect from an Atlantic City payphone. The contaminated water of the drainage ditch had done too much damage to the 4 bodies for police to get any real evidence of who did the killings. They did come to the conclusion, however, that the killings occurred elsewhere, and the back of the Golden Key Motel was used as a dumping ground. There was also speculation that the killer was staying nearby.
Acting Atlantic City prosecutor Diane Ruberton said the case remains open but provided no further details, although there has been speculation that the killings could possibly be related to the Gilgo Beach killings on Long Island, New York.
New developments in the case of Rex Heuermann, the suspected serial killer accused of murdering at least 3 women, whose remains were found along a short stretch on Long Island's Gilgo Beach back in 2010. CNN has learned that his wife is now filing for divorce, and the Suffolk County Sheriff tells us that Heuermann has been extremely quiet while in jail.
Las Vegas, he's got a timeshare. Spoke to Las Vegas Metro yesterday. They're going back through their open cases, missing persons, to see does anyone fit the victimology or the offender characteristics at the crime scene. Hunting cabins he had access to in upstate New York. Those counties will be looking at those cases. Generally, an offender like this doesn't just grind to a halt and say, those urges are gone, I'm going to stop killing people. They may change their MO, they may change the geography, and that's why they're expanding in all these directions.
Here's a shocking testimony from a co-worker of the Gilgo Beach killer who he tracked down while she was on a cruise ship in the ocean.
When she heard that police had recovered almost 300 firearms from a vault in Heuermann's basement, she was surprised only by the number. She knew him as an avid hunter.
Going out, shooting, hunting, that was his passion.
What was it about hunting he liked?
I don't know. I guess he liked the idea of having a prize.
Stalking prey?
Stalking prey. And winning. He liked to win.
And while she says it never occurred to her that Heuermann could be dangerous, she does remember a time when his tracking skills unnerved her. It was her 40th birthday, and she had booked a cruise vacation.
Where are you going? He said, I'm gonna be in the middle of the ocean. You're not gonna find me in the middle of the ocean. He said, oh, yes, I can.
Muriel didn't think much of the comment until the second day of her trip.
There was a white envelope under my door. It was a note from him. The note said, I told you I could find you anywhere.
Crime, poverty, violence, drugs. This entrance to Atlantic City has been nothing but trouble for generations. As they knock down what's left of this broken community, maybe there is hope left for West Atlantic City. Thank you everyone for watching and supporting. Until next time, take care and be safe.